الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فقال الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Can the sisters in the back hear me? No? Okay. It needs to go up higher, they're saying. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي قال فخذ أربعة من الطير فصرهن إليك ثم اجعل على كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعهن يأتينك سعيا واعلم أن الله عزيز حكيم. As we know the famous story that Ibrahim alayhi salam said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Ya Rabb, O my Lord, I wish to see how you give life to death. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do you not believe? Ibrahim alayhi salam said, Bala, walakin liyatma'inna qalbi. I believe indeed, but I want to satisfy my heart. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to do this, take these birds and then cut them in small pieces, mix them all up, divide them up on different mountains, and then he said call them, and when he called them, they all came together in front of his eyes. And the different parts of different birds came together and they became alive in front of his eyes. Now, there are many lessons that we can you hear from in the back now? No, they can say, I think only the front speakers are working, the back ones are not working.
This volume is also master volume increase.
Okay, can you hear me now? No? Okay. It's even worse than before. We have to cancel Jummah and come back tomorrow. So, inshallah, I'll try to speak as loud as I can and you can work on the volume over there. So, Ibrahim alayhi salam saw in front of his own eyes that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave life to the dead. Now at the same time, this ayah, when we look at it, it shows us that Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about something that he wasn't comfortable with. And he wanted the satisfaction of his heart. And the reason, and the scholars say that this ayah is an amazingly beneficial ayah for the believer that shows us that it is okay and it is human to sometimes have some flickering in your heart. To say, is God really out there? Sometimes, when we, especially living in today's time, that's what I want to talk about. Sometimes some Muslims, they come up with this, they have these thoughts that, we have been told by our parents that there is a God. And we have, they have never explained it to us how there is a God. We haven't seen any evidence of this. And then there are the atheists out there who are clamoring, saying, hey, you guys are all backward, you guys don't know anything, there is no proof of a God out there. So my dear brothers and sisters, today I wanted to take these few minutes to remind us all that indeed there is a God out there. And the proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is undeniable. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions some ayat in the Quran, and one of them He says that the proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is within your own selves. Is within your own selves, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But in 1810s, a student at Oxford University, he wrote a book about, he called The Necessity of Atheism. And he basically argued that there is no proof that there is a God. If there is a proof, come and show it to me. At that time, Oxford University basically kicked him out of Oxford. However, today the times have changed, where if there's a conservative professor who believes in God and religious values, they will not get very much promotions. They will not really excel and reach great levels within the university promotion systems. In fact, they just want some very liberal, very secular type of people, and those are the ones that will exceed in all the levels. So the tide is turning. There used to be the people who were saying there was no God, and they said, just leave us alone. Now, there's something called the new atheism, where they say, we don't believe that there's a God, and we believe that those who believe in a God are wrong, and they need to be stopped and changed. And there's one of these people, he says, that it is so bad that these people believe in God, that it may be ethical to kill them, because they believe in a God. And subhanAllah, they have some arguments that they put forth, and a believer who has not studied this issue, he gets confused by them. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I would never be able to get a crowd like this to come at a time other than Jum'ah. And the people who are inshallah, please turn off your cell phones. So the people who may be having these doubts, they will not, many times they will not come forward because there will be stigma. Many times they will not come forward, and if they speak to their parents and they say, Mom, Dad, I'm having doubts about Islam. Mom and Dad will pick up their juta, their shoe, and they'll say, come here and I will fix you and I will take care of your doubts right now. So, however, this is not the right approach. And the reason why it's important to mention this is because there are many young Muslims who basically were Muslim only in name. And their parents, their imams in their masajid never addressed the issue, never addressed the elephant in the room. So when they went through college, and especially when they went through philosophy classes, that messed up their minds. And there are Muslims who are leaving Islam. And the surprising thing is that the majority of them, they're not becoming Christians, they're not becoming Jews, they're not becoming Hindu, they're becoming atheists. Because they're not necessarily upset with Islam, they're upset with religion or frustrated with religion altogether. And that's why I warn the parents to take special care. If your kid is asking you questions, don't brush them under the carpet. Don't pretend like these questions are not really serious. Rather, treat that like a very serious matter. If your child told you that I want to kill myself, na'udhu billah, may Allah protect all of our children, you should never ignore that. And you would never ignore that. You would never think that he's just joking or kidding. But if your child tells you that I am thinking about spending my hereafter in hellfire and eternity, then how can we ignore that? If the child says, well, I'm not really sure about Islam, so we have to pay attention to that. Now, very quickly, there are two primary arguments that the atheists put out there. They say that number one, they say, look how much violence the religion has caused. They say, look at all the crusades, and look at the so-called terrorist-related deaths. And all throughout history, you see that the religious people were fighting with each other. Now, it sounds like a big problem, but actually, it is not a big problem at all. If you put together the rough numbers that we find in all the books about all the conflicts in the past and in present day, if you put them together, they come out to maybe a few million. Let's say very, very extravagant number would be 25 million people. Okay, and I'm counting crusades. Okay, but it is nowhere near that. Maybe less than 1 million would be what the number that we could probably come up with. In World War II alone, 70 to 80 million people lost their lives. 70 to 80 million people in just one world war. And World War II had nothing to do with religion. It was not a religious conflict. It was people of all religions fighting with each other. There was no religious motivation. They will come and tell you, they'll say, look at these people who want to kill themselves in the name of God. That's why God is evil. This is a wrong concept. But you know what? The number one, the leaders of suicide bombing in the world are not Muslims. They're not Christians. We heard about the kamikazes from the Japanese who did not believe in God. And the world's most amount of suicides have been done by a group called Tamil Tigers, who are a communist Marxist group who don't believe in God. The majority of these things, they happen because of political reasons. So they're not saying we should outlaw politics, but they want to outlaw religion. Secondly, they say that we cannot find any proof of God. And that's what we will spend some time on. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's just a few ayat of the Quran which actually talk directly about people who don't believe in God. And one of the key things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is that these are not people who really doubt the existence of God, but what they really want to do is worship their own desires. From giving up religion altogether, they can party all day, all night. That's the end discussion. They can drink, they can sleep around, they can do whatever they want to do. They can justify that. They can justify that by saying, hey, there is no God, so we just decide whatever feels good, that's what we do. If we feel like cheating somebody, we cheat somebody. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen the one who has taken his own desires as a God? So, there are also, obviously, these atheists, they are not just attacking Muslims. They attack Muslims especially, but they also attack other religions as well. And other, Western theists, which are believers in God, they have also responded with many, many arguments that we will just quickly list against these people. Number one, they say this is called the design argument. The design argument. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look around. The signs of Allah are all around. Now it sounds like, just a thing that you say. But actually it's not just a thing that you say. If you look around, the atheists will say that there were a series of accidents, billions and trillions of accidents that led us to the moment that we are in right now. Think about this. If you're walking in the desert, complete desert, there's no sign of humanity there. Imagine you're on a planet and you know that you are the first person that landed on this planet. This planet is all but a desert. And you come across in front of you 3 bricks, perfectly square, rectangular bricks. And they are piled on top of each other, perfectly aligned. 3 of them. Is there any way that wind caused this? Is there any way that it was an accident of nature that it happened? If 3 bricks cannot be aligned on top of each other, then how can the entire universe, with all of its perfection that is there, how can that be an accident? How can that be a series of accidents? There's too many constants, meaning that the gravity of the sun and the gravity of Jupiter is just enough that the sun is not pulling all the planets into itself and destroying them. And it is just perfect that these planets are not just going out into the space away from the sun and freezing. It is just perfect. If you look at, for example, when we have solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, this is a phenomenon. They say that this is one of the greatest accidents of science, greatest accidents in the universe, that the sun and the moon are just at a perfect distance, that there comes a time where the moon is in between the earth, and it happens to be just the perfect size that the whole earth could be in the shade of the moon behind it. That, we just saw the solar eclipse. That the moon happens to be just the right size, that it will cover the entire sun. It's not too big. Remember when the moon covered the sun, you saw the thing around it, right? It's just the perfect size that Allah says the sun is still there, but it's not shining in your eyes. And it's not too small that the sun doesn't get completely covered. What an amazing accident this is. Na'udhu billah, this is not an accident. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look, هَذَا خَلْقُ اللَّهِ فَأَرُونِي مَاذَا خَلَقُوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Show me what they have created. The false gods that people believe, what have they created? You look at the universe, there's no jitters. There are no bugs in the universe. There are no imperfections in the universe. Everything just works so perfectly. Look at our human bodies. How amazing this system is that Allah has created within us. How can if a person would not believe that 3 bricks could be on top of each other, perfectly aligned, by themselves, by an accident of nature, then how can a person believe that this happened by accident? So that's one argument. And even scientists, they say that, there's just too much perfection for us to say or believe that this is just all accidents. Number 2, they say morality. If a child who has not been taught by his parents anything, if you are unfair to this child gets upset. If you give a candy to the other child but not to this child gets upset. Nobody had taught this child the systems of law and fairness and justice and balance. But this kid inherently doesn't like that. What biological explanation can there be? They say a child doesn't lie. The child, he or she learns to lie from other people. So how can this be in all types of people? Where did this come from? There's no biological explanation for this. There's no DNA explanation for this, but it is there. It is something which we call the fitrah, the nature, the pure nature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all the people upon. Also, we say another argument that is put forth against the people who say that all of this is an accident. And we came as a process of the product of evolution. They were these little single cell beings, and then they became multi-cell and became bigger and bigger and bigger until we became the human beings that we are. They say, have you pondered over the intelligence of the human being? The intelligence of the human being is so far advanced from any other thing before it that it doesn't make sense. If you're saying that the human beings are just the next step of what came before, then there should be some type of correlation, right? That maybe the creation before had like 20% intelligence, so the human beings have 30% intelligence. Maybe that makes sense. But they have like hardly any intelligence compared to human beings, and the human beings have created these cities and designs and computers and all of these type of things. And the ability of speech. The human speech is so far advanced from any other creation out there that the evolution does not explain it. So, my dear brothers and sisters, when they come and they tell you there's no proof of God, you tell them, yes, there is proof of God. There is scientific proof of God. This is the proof. That your theory cannot answer these questions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He is the one who created everything. Also, I'll just share one more, that there is the argument of beauty. Recently I was visiting Pakistan, and I went to the northern areas. And I went to the northern areas are all mountains. And you look at it and it's just breathtaking beauty. And there are spots, you go to any of these scenic spots. Everybody agrees that this is a scenic spot. You don't come across people where sometimes they have a scenic overlook. You don't come across people who stop there and they look out and they say, this is not a scenic place. This is ugly. Nobody says that. What is it that we're trying to say? We're trying to say is that somehow everybody agrees on what beauty is. If all of us came as a result of accident, then your definition of beauty should have been different from the rest of humanity. How come all humanity agrees what is beautiful is beautiful? Everybody looks at these mountains and says, wow, amazing. Everybody looks on a beach and they say, this is so amazing. The whole world wants to spend their vacations on a beach. All of that by accident? This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has programmed within us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran about Jannah, that the reward for the believers, the righteous people is Jannah. And what is the description of Jannah? The description of Jannah is beautiful gardens, greenery, below which rivers flow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this is what you love. And all humanity can agree that this is what we love. The richest of atheists will build a swimming pool in their house. And they'll have a nice garden in their house. Because they love the same things as everybody else who believes in God. And lastly, we'll say, if you say that there is no God, na'udhu billah. This is all made up stories that people made. Karl Marx said that this is a way to sedate the society. The rich people oppress the poor people and they tell them, don't worry, this is the will of God. We haven't done anything bad to you. God had written it for you. This is what they said. Na'udhu billah, we don't believe in any of this. We believe in the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the rich are being tested and the poor are being tested. If this is all a lie, then how come only a small percentage, less than 1% of the world is atheist? And the majority of the world believes in some form of higher being. Shouldn't it be the other way around? If the truth is that there is no God, na'udhu billah, then the majority, we could say at least 50-50 should have been 50% of the world doesn't believe in God and 50% was fooled by a lie by somebody. But it is not that case, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has programmed. In fact, BBC did an article and they said that they did an experiment, a study on primitive societies and children, and they found out through scientific data that every child is programmed to believe in God. Every child is programmed to believe in God. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, that every child is born a Muslim. It is his parents that make him a Jew or a Christian or some other religion that they believe in. Every child is born upon the pure fitrah. Upon the pure fitrah. And lastly, we'll just say from the arguments from the Quran, among many, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us the prophets. And He sent us revelation. And one of the ways we can kind of go backward and say, okay, let's pause the question, is there God out there or not? Let's pick up the Quran. And when we look at the Quran, we see, for example, the Quran talking about embryology. We look at the Quran and we talk about all the scientific miracles. If you just look at the stages of the fetus as it goes through the stages of development, there is no possible scientific explanation as to how the Prophet ﷺ 1400 years ago could have been able to find out the details of exactly how the stages of the fetus is. And this is just one. There are whole books on the scientific miracles of the Quran. So we can say, okay, through this we can establish that the Quran is speaking some truth. Okay? It knew about something that could not have been known to society 1400 years ago. It knew about that and it told us about it. Now we look at also the Prophet ﷺ and all of the prophets of Allah. A person who, one of the emperor of Rome, when he heard the message of the Prophet ﷺ, when he received the messenger, he called some Meccans that were visiting, and he came and he brought them and he asked them some questions. And one of the questions he asked them, he said that, have you ever seen this man who's claiming to be a prophet of God, who says believe in one God? Have you ever seen him lie about something else? Have you ever seen him lie to you about some dates that he's selling to you? You know, this car is very good quality, but there turns out to be a problem in it. Have you ever seen him lie about anything? And he said, no, we have never witnessed him lying about anything. So then the Emperor of Rome responded. He said, if a person does not lie about these small issues, how can that person lie about God? How can that person make this huge, enormous lie if he doesn't even lie in these small little things? And that's why we always say that one of the proofs of the truth of Islam is the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The life of the Prophet ﷺ. That people checked him for 40 years and they found him to be a trustworthy and honest person. So, my dear brothers and sisters, we have made a recording of this. And I have more material, but we don't have time for that. The reason why I wanted to do this is because I wanted to reach to those people who may be too afraid to speak up and say, you know what will people say if I tell them that I'm having some doubts? If you're having some doubts, come and talk to me. And just because your parents weren't able to give you an answer, just because you weren't able to find a suitable answer online, doesn't mean that there isn't an answer out there. There is an answer. And, you know, this is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if you say that there is no God, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that were they created from nothing, or are they themselves the creator? And if you go into the detail of this argument, it is an amazing thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in just one line destroys the entire premise of atheism, that there is no God out there. So my dear brothers and sisters, if you want to talk, you can talk to me. And inshallah, you can ask me for the recording of this. If you want to send this to a friend of yours, if you want to send this to a relative of yours, you can, so that they will understand that just because they haven't yet heard the answer, doesn't mean the answer isn't there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are all around you, and they are within you. They are within you. The key is that a person is open with an open mind. Because a lot of times people will come and they say that I'm an atheist, and if you say, okay, let me just ask you this one question. Forget about all these arguments, all these evidences, if God himself came down to you right now, and you were able to ascertain that this is God and this is not some type of magic show going on, if you were able to be sure that this is God, and he comes to you and he tells you, I am your God, worship me, will you worship him then? Will you accept him then? And a lot of times they will say, I'm not sure, I would have to think about it. That means that they're not sincerely looking for evidence of God. They just want a justification to do whatever they want to do. And this theory of evolution and atheism and all of that, this is what gave rise to the modern capitalism, which is basically the theory that you get rich at whatever cost it is. If people have to die for you to make money, no problem. If entire countries have to be destroyed for you to have your nice big house, no problem. You do what you have to do to please yourself. Because remember, who is the God? The God is the desires. Na'udhu billah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta.